people are leaving the game because of DH, or at least that's one of the posts that we are going to read today on Reddit, and I'm going to give you my opinion, which I think is pretty heard of. But let's move my camera really quickly so you do see the whole post. Queued into double DH 5 out of 6 shuffle games, so it means a total of 36 rounds, which is, let's say, very draining if you're facing a lot of DHs. Games so far today, time to unsub. Title, it's not even funny anymore. So that is what the guy has posted, but I feel like I want to talk a bit more about it, because this is like, again, doesn't really give any indication on why people don't enjoy playing versus DH like all the time. And after playing a DH myself for a bit, until I got bored of waiting in soul shuffles, queues, but also just in general, I think season 3 is a bit too long, or at least it feels too long. I think that's for a lot of people the same case. But I'm going to read a bit the comments, and I'm going to give you my opinion, and then I'm going to give you why it is so frustrating to play versus a DH and why we really daily need balancing. And I don't think balancing is the only issue why people are leaving, but I'm going to talk about it also a bit further down the line. But people are going to read, say, don't unsub, make a DH. It is the only way they're going to be forced to fix it. So it's not really written very well, but anyways, they need to fix it, and the only way they are going to fix it is by playing absurd amount of DH. Alright, I will need to watch some streamer gameplay to understand the convoluted rotation. So again, I have a bit more explaining to do towards that. Let's read a bit further if there are like any comments that are going to give you a bit of sense. Why would they be forced? DH has been at the top of DPS rankings, tank rankings, and has DPS completely dominated 2s, 3s, and soul shuffle the entire season. Yes, entire season. It's really season 3. I think season 2, DH were not that strong. I think since the rework, they do feel like really oppressive, because now you don't lose anything by going netherwalk. Before, if you went netherwalk, you had to sacrifice a few things, and now it feels like, again, DH gets a bit of everything. At the start of the season, you got like Elysian Decree. Well, it's still there, by the way. You get Elysian Decree and the Hunt. You get all the goodies on the DH tree, and you also get all the goodies on the Havoc tree. So it feels like you have like a lot of everything, where a lot of specs, like any spec, I'm going to talk about enhance, they have to choose way more things, where they have to sacrifice those things in order to take the goodies that you really want. And even then, it's like you choose one, which is very fun, and you leave the other thing behind. But also balancing wise, this isn't necessarily a big issue for them. They certainly don't care enough to bother anyway. Maybe if literally every single healer out there rerolls DH, there are no more SS lobbies, but short of that, I'm not sure. Personally, I don't know if they're really caring too much about balancing right now. It does feel like all hands are on deck for War Within. I made multiple videos about it, but it feels like, again, there is nothing showing like they're going to fix anything. And if they do, it feels like, again, they are like harmstrong towards War Within and the alpha that should come out anytime soon. It should be out in March, I think, from the timeline, or maybe April, but it needs to be ready. And I guess everyone is working on that. I think if it will have popularity of over 35%, it will look like a problem to them. But again, I do feel like the popularity is already that high. So yeah, that's another problem. Fight fire with fire, blah blah blah. Almost like 2-2-2 needs to be forced, which is 2 melees, 2 casters, 2 healers, which I actually agree. But the issue is, whenever you're going to do that, is that it is going to have longer queues for melees for sure. It's going to be faster queues for casters though. And at one point, people are going to say, look, you're forcing me to heal, you're forcing me to play caster. Well, I just want to play melee, I want to play warrior, so if I get like a 1 hour queue based on this, it's pretty dumb. And I do agree that by doing 2-2-2, the games are going to be like, the queue times are going to be even worse for a lot of players. And then of course, like me, I'm not going to be hamstrung because of that, because I am a caster main and also a melee main. So I would be playing both, and I will be feeling, look, as a caster I will have a 5 minute queue, and as a melee I would have a 30 minute queue. So again, I see the benefits from 2-2-2, but yeah, I see also the negatives, and people should maybe look a bit further down the line if it's going to be an issue or not. But I think gameplay wise, it is a more fair thing. You're not going to have a melee lobby, but you're also not going to have a caster lobby. The issue I see is you're still going to have bad lobbies as a caster. Again, if you're like a warlock or a mage and you're playing versus a DH, windwalker, and let's say a BM or MM, you're still going to have a terrible time. So again, ranged doesn't mean always a good lobby for a caster, for example. But people are all again short-sighted on a few problems. But anyways, my last straw was 11 straight games of SS and not seeing another ranged while almost every single map is small as fuck. Then people here spam, but range is better at high ranks. Meanwhile, AWC Cup 1 finals between NA and AU had 7 out of 8 melee. Then in Cup 2 it was double DH in the EU final. Melee is absolutely OP and there's no denying it anymore. 2v2 is a death sentence as ranged. That's true. I think the other things are more like opinion based, but 2v2, true. Melee is king compared to ranged. There's like a few specs that work in a ranged setup in 2v2, and often than not, they are quite dampening, so you really have to love ranged to play in 2s as a ranged DPS. Solo Shuffle is just 3 melee training, 1 ranged. That's true, but again, a ranged being free cast often just destroys the lobby, so there is also reasoning behind it, right? And everywhere else, it's just melee dominance, which I feel like in 3s, it is like more ranged. And then you have like, again, the meta comps, which are DH, DK, DH Windwalker, DK Windwalker, and then you have the warrior comps. It's very annoying to play against, but I think if you're a wizard cleave, you can handle a bit more than, let's say, the soul shuffle kind of lobbies that you could have as arranged. But overall, all the comments are a bit the same, really. I reached my season goals. We dropped our 2s rating to potato CR, and now we enjoy the game by farming low mid CR DHs. Blah, blah, blah. Now I'm going to give you my opinion. So I do feel like DH is absurd right now. I do feel like there's a lot of other specs that are absurd. Whenever you're going to nerf DH, I think Windwalker is pretty much next in the absurdity. But then there's also a lot of other specs that could also be seen. I just think we do need balancing, and I am a proponent again. I think balancing is not the main issue. It is still an issue, but I do feel like there will always be like a balancing problem, and it should be continuous. Already told multiple times how much I am jealous about League of Legends way of balancing. And yes, it is MMO, yes, it's 39 specs, and yes, it's a bit more fragile meta-wise compared to League of Legends, where there are multiple champions, and again, every 2 weeks you have a balancing patch note, which is not revolving around the same champions every time. But I do feel like World of Warcraft needs that perma balancing where everyone gets a shot at being one of the better specs. There will never be a true balancing state for World of Warcraft because it just isn't the case. Like if DH is strong, you will see way more DHs. If let's say warrior is super strong and it's S tier and literally like broken, you will see a lot of warriors. If you see that the next spec is Windwalker and warrior gets nerfed, well, you will see way more Windwalkers, and there is no real power creep to that, because again, for me, if you're balancing something, it's like rock paper scissors kind of thing, right? If one spec is strong versus another and he gets into the meta, obviously the other spec is going to suffer, and once that spec gets nerfed, the spec that suffers gets kind of thrown back to the top, and then you have like another issue where that spec counters another, etc., etc. And that's the thing that is what is balancing. And in PvP, you should be balancing very, very close and very, very often. And it doesn't need to be bombastic amount of numbers. You don't need to do a plus 30% damage modification. You can just do every 3% or a 5% or a little rework on some abilities, how they function in PvP. For example, nerf some CCs that should be maybe a bit lower duration wise. Like for example, Shockwave could be 2 seconds. I think Chaos Nova being like a big AoE stun could be also used like some sort of nerf towards the CC duration, or like the CD towards in PvP. You can do a lot of things and you can work on it and try to reiterate every single time. That's something that you should be doing. But I think personally that the issue of balancing is not per se how DHs are strong. The issue is they are just kept strong because there is no real balancing. If there was balancing every single like every 2 weeks, but personally I would even do like every week and a half or every 2 weeks. Like 2 weeks is a good like start. Like every 2 weeks you put some good balancing and some good comments where you actually give reasoning behind those changes. Like for example, percentiles. Like for example, they can say, look, DH right now has a 35% play rate with a huge amount of representation on the ladder. We have to nerf it, and that is how we are going to nerf it. The issue is on the patch notes, it feels like they're like taboo words. They're just not spoken. Like for example, popularity, participation, ladder, representation. Like all those 3 things are never like really read on a patch note, which should be, because there should be no taboo, because everything is open with an API, so everyone has the same information. If you just look up the ladder states or the leaderboard states of World of Warcraft. So that's an issue to me. Again, TH is also like truly a spec where whenever it's strong, it's obnoxious because of how they deal damage. Again, I'm not against them doing a lot of damage because it's just meant to be. Like Affliction Warlock should be also doing top damage normally if it's balanced correctly, because it is spreading triple dots on triple people. So obviously you should be doing more damage overall over a course of a match. But single target you will never like spike like a Destruction Warlock, or let's say Arms Warrior whenever he's in avatar form, or for example a Feral Druid trying to do a single target build, for example. So what we have right now is single target or AoE. DH is just superior. Like in 2s, you will always see or often see DH being on top of the meters. In 3s, the same. In Soul Shuffle, the same. And the issue is because of all the abilities, at least like all, it's not really all, but I would say 3/4 of the abilities are actually AoE abilities that can be used in single target situations, and the damage is not really reduced if you're hitting 2 or 3 guys. Like it's very much like a damage increase. You want to hit 3 guys every single time, but the single target is not going to be lower. And single target, you're already doing more damage than a lot of specs that are not like AoE focused. So it's very annoying to face one. They also have like little to no CD. You would say Metamorphosis is a big CD, but you have I-Beam and you have now the build, which is actually just reducing the CD of I-Beam, but also extending the duration of the demon form. So the actual uptime of demon form is very high, and just coincides with the burst, which is Essence Break. So every 45 seconds you have an Essence Break burst, which you can actually do and align with a I-Beam, and with that build you could actually cramp 2 I-Beams into 1 Essence Break cycle. So you can actually, like, how can I say, you can I-Beam, do your normal rotation, and then do another I-Beam once you have it up, and you can do your Essence Break. And basically every single Essence Break downtime, you can do another I-Beam, and once you have the Essence Break back, you would have another I-Beam ready for that damage. Obviously, it's like 5 seconds difference, but you don't need to I-Beam every single time on demand. But you can align like one I-Beam without Essence Break and a second I-Beam with Essence Break. Now, why do I explain that? The issue is the damage is really, really high, no matter what. Like without or with I beam. I mean, without, like with or without I beam, but also with or without essence break, and that's really an issue, because again, balancing, I'm okay for that. I'm okay like a destruction warlock that can do damage at all times. It's good. I want that for every single spec. The issue is, let's be honest, it is not for every single spec. So now we have an issue where clearly you have DHs that have like a lot of uptime on their damage and no really like a break where you're going to actually have some breathing room where you're going to say, we survived that damage. We're going to survive another cycle until we can actually burst him down and kill him. Now, another issue is the amount of CDs and CCs that you have in general to survive, but also to set up kills. So, for example, you have Blur, which is a 1 minute CD. It's a very big CD actually. It's like very effective, and really, I think is one of the best CDs in the game for a 1 minute CD. You also have Netherwalk, which is effectively an immunity. It's a ice block, but you can move pretty much. I would see it like this, to be honest. You may see it otherwise, but for me, it's another walk where you can move. But you can also get CC'd, but you cannot get damaged. It's also an issue. But then you also have darkness, which effectively is a random thing. It could also like darkness and get full damage like at all times. That is also a possibility. But more like likely than not, it will absorb a full amount of spells sometimes, and you couldn't do nothing except like knock him away or trying to grab him, like drag him out of the darkness, which is not always easy, right? Then they have also glimpse every 20 or 25 seconds, which can immune a CC for 3 seconds and has a damage reduction for I think 30% damage reduction or something while they are in the air. Still a very strong PvP talent. And they also have like stupid PvP talents, which is the immolate, which is going to dispel all magic effects, which is also very strong versus a lot of specs. Yes, if they're doing that versus an affliction warlock, they're going to have a very bad time. But obviously, affliction warlock is not really that meta, so they're not going to bother with it. They're still going to run it. I remember there was a time where Retribution Paladins were justifiably very strong because of their dispel on their judgment. They had like a PvP talent where basically whenever they're going to judgment, everyone in the aura actually gets a dispel from flame shock, for example, and that was nerfed. Now it's only the paladin that gets dispelled, and holy paladin has the same thing. Now it only dispels themselves, but DH has it on immolate, which is not justifiably something they could have because it is not really, I would say, understandable to have that in their kit. They have like glimpse, they have blur, darkness, netherwalk. We talk about everything. Also leech, they have a lot of leech as well, and a lot of damage, a lot of CC. They have like double stun. They have a like a banish, which is also very strong. They have a fear as well. A lot of stuff. So DH is very annoying to play against. It's not fun to play against. I can understand that some people have fun playing with and as, but it needs some tuning. It needs like more than just damage tuning. It needs like more. And if you think like damage tuning is enough, I don't think so, because personally, I don't want a spec to be gutted to a point where they do no damage, because the obvious problem is not the damage. It is actually everything that is tied towards the damage, which is CC, the CDs, and the overall survivability of the spec. But again, I understand that people are very, very frustrated towards it. I personally really dislike those lobbies because it feels like it always plays the same, and that's my issue. It also feels like I see constantly the same classes, but that's a problem with how alting works. Like if alting is super easy to do in like a certain amount of game, like for example with World of Warcraft Dragonflight, it's very easy to alt. I think the issue is that people are hopping towards flavor of the month, which again I'm not against. I myself, I am an altoholic. I do play a lot of specs. I do play a lot of classes. I have also a lot of fun with it, but I do understand that some people can be very frustrated because of it. And again, there is no miracle solution except doing balancing more often with more explanation and do more effective balancing, which is not only like doing a -5% damage reduction or a +5 damage increase, but they need to hit the things that are meaningful in PvP, which is not only damage but everything tied to the damage. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. I know it was a long video, but I think I should give context to the things, for example, that are tied towards DH. Again, I'm not a DH fan. I like the times I play DH personally. I don't really like the class. I understand that it can be fun because of the damage it does and how it does it. But yeah, I'm a fan of balancing. I'm a fan of League of Legends style of balancing where they hit everything or like often with a lot of explanation and gives like a turn to everyone. Like there is no real balancing in a game like PvP. There never will be a state where there will be a status quo, because whenever there is a status quo, you will always find a new OP thing. And you, like for example, right now we don't have balancing since I think beginning of January, if I'm not mistaken. If not December, I don't even remember, to be honest. But right now we are in a dire state of change. We need changes, like in any way possible. We need communication from Blizzard, and right now they're working on War Within. It is what it is at the end of the day. Again, thank you for watching. Have a good day. Bye.